Now I turn to my dear brother, Reverend, oh, are you afraid I'm calling you brother?
Sure, you are. You are a brother, of course.
The great Reverend Father, George Ehusani, for many years, Secretary General of the Catholic Secretariat in Lagos, is now here, and he has made a massive contribution to social discourse, and I'm very keen to listen to his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Sibajo, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Chief Justice of the Federation, distinguished jurists, learned gentlemen and ladies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored to have been invited to be part of this conference. I have never attended even a Law 101 class. But I guess I am here because I have a passion for justice. I have a passion for the practice of law, the conduct of lawyers and judges, as well as the administration of the various institutions and processes and machineries that make up the Nigerian legal system. I will speak not as an academic, but as a layman. I will speak from the point of view of law, the purpose of law. In preparing for this conference, I had to take a look again at the Hammurabi Code. What is the purpose of law according to the Hammurabi Code? I took a look at the Nicomedean ethics. I looked at the Bible. I looked at the Quran, a bit of it. The purpose of law for all generations, especially in the Western tradition, is justice, pure and simple. The attainment of justice. That is the purpose of law. Whether it be distributive justice, corrective justice, transactional or commutative justice, it is in order to establish the right order, that men and women may exist in society and interact in an equitable, just, and peaceful manner. This, for me, is the purpose of law in any society. But though, as we have stated, the overriding purpose of drafting, codifying, and administering law in the human society is generally understood to be the attainment of justice, history, however, shows that laws have not always been designed and managed in such a way as to promote greater justice. Laws have not always been designed and managed in such a way as to promote the priority of the common good over and against individual and group goods. Laws have not always protected the poor and the weak against the excesses of the rich and the powerful. Laws, rather than always promoting justice, have often helped to secure the dominant class, to which most lawyers belong, by the way. Laws have rather helped to secure the dominant and privileged class with their undue advantage over the rest of society. Indeed, experience has shown that laws and the administration can be a tool of oppression or an instrument of liberation, depending on who the practitioners are and what they make of them. Yes, the whole mechanism of lawmaking and administration can and has often been manipulated by the dominant, powerful class in society to subvert justice and to subjugate, to impoverish, to marginalize, and to disenfranchise or further exclude the lowly poor. In the late 60s, a Marxist analyst demonstrated in their own way how law is often an instrument of oppression. Examples include the 1980 Equal but Separate Law that instituted racial segregation in the United States, the 1911 Aborigines Law of Australia that authorized the state forceful takeaway from their mothers any child suspected of being of mixed blood, the 1948 Apartheid Law that accorded black South Africans only second-class status in their own country, and the 1984 Decree 4 of the military regime of our now democratic president, which effectively removed the freedom of expression of Nigerians at the time. Thus, when written and administered by a good leader or by good leaders that are servants of the people, laws tend to promote justice. But when written by tyrants, laws are invariably unjust. We must add here that the legal practitioners who helped the dictatorial leaders in the course of history to draft such unjust laws, and the jurists whose unjust rulings upheld those oppressive regimes in power, often belong to the dominant class themselves and cannot escape condemnation for the evil cause to which they applied their privileged learning and expertise. The notion of justice derives from natural law and right reason. In the human consciousness, the notion of justice belongs to ethics and to morality, and that is why I am involved. The notion of justice belongs to good conscience. Justice derives from the recognition of the common humanity and therefore equal dignity, sanctity, and inviolability of all persons. Justice recognizes that each person has a worth or value that is not conferred on him or her by the state or institution, but as such worth or value is intrinsic or inherent. This is why we speak of fundamental human rights as inviolable. That is to say that they are neither conferred nor can they be taken away by any earthly authority. State laws do not confer, but only promote and protect the free exercise of these rights. Justice is rooted in the honest recognition and acceptance of the fundamental dignity and rights of each person and of every person, as well as the concomitant commitment to render to everyone his or her due. Our revered jurist and former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Chukwudifo Puta of blessed memory, in 1985 made a presentation which he titled Towards Justice with a Human Face. He declared, quote, "Justice is the attitude of mind that accepts the other, all others, as subject of rights in their own right, that one's own ego is not absolute, that one's interests are related to the interests of others, that my own rights stops where my neighbor's rights begin, that every man is free to do that which he wills, provided he infringes not the equal freedom of other persons. In this simple concession that each deserves his own, the moral self comes to grip with the reality and value of ourselves. We show what a person is by what we ultimately concede to him. If we deny persons justice, we have decided them worthless," unquote. This then introduces the concept of just versus unjust laws. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle says that law is order and good law is good order. Law and order indeed go together. That is why we have the expression law and order. An unjust legal system could uphold order, even if momentarily, but such order is an unjust order. So when oppressive, exploitative, dictatorial regimes speak of social order, all they mean is organized disorder. Or a dispensation that could be described as stratified injustice. Yet, even in societies that have a semblance of justice in their legal system, the law may be so skewed or so badly administered that the resulting order becomes basically unjust. That is part of our problem. We recall St. Augustine's famous dictum that kingdoms devoid of justice are nothing but a bunch of bandits or a gang of robbers. Lawyers have been described as ministers in the temple of justice. The legal profession, classically understood as a helping profession, which is why Olisa just spoke about the court system organized like the doctor's offices. The legal profession was traditionally recognized as a helping profession, not just another means of livelihood, much less an instrument for wealth accumulation. The legal profession in the Western tradition is perceived as a vocation. And what is a vocation? A divine calling, much like the medical profession or the priesthood. Whereas the contractor, the business tycoon or the entrepreneur sets out as his or her fundamental objective to amass wealth, and he or she measures his or her success in terms of the amount of wealth and property he or she has accumulated in course of time. The lawyer, on the other hand, is expected to be motivated by an all-consuming passion for the common good, for the promotion of a just and equitable social order, and especially for the protection of the poor and the weak against the excesses of the rich and powerful in society. That is the calling of the lawyer. The lawyer is a custodian of civilization. He or she is on a civilizing mission in society. The lawyer is a freedom fighter after the fashion of Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, our own Ganifa Wahimi, and all the rest, including some of those here. In modern democracies, the lawyer is a leader in social change or social engineering, directing the course of social evolution towards greater justice for all, through regular engagement in law reform and social advocacy. In a country like Nigeria, where repeated military intervention in our political history has had a major corrosive effect on our democratic culture, what my friend J.B. Daudu called attitude. You know, in recent times, internationally, there's been a discussion about culture matters. Culture matters. What is the culture in Nigeria in terms of what do we conceive as the rights of another? Now, military regime, repeated military intervention has corroded our psyche, where we have been left with such terrible legacies of injustice as the widespread public display of executive lawlessness, torture, brutality, extrajudicial killings at the hands of police and other functionaries of state, reckless looting of public treasury by those entrusted with a common will, arbitrary arrest and prolonged detention without trial of poor suspects, even for minor bailable infractions, and the general culture of impunity in the land. With all this, my dear friends, the work of the lawyer is clearly cut out for him. In a country that has had more than its fair share of notoriously corrupt and abusive leaders, the lawyer cannot afford to be inattentive or indifferent. Instead, the lawyer must use his privileged learning and high standing in society as a minister in the temple of justice to stand between the government and the citizens by resisting rights violations and abuses. In a country like ours, where in spite of our enormous natural resources, the poor and their children are largely denied opportunities for good nourishment, good quality education, decent housing, decent and affordable public transportation, and adequate health care, the lawyer must be at the forefront of social engineering through creative change advocacy mechanisms. Only bold affirmation of justice by lawyers on behalf of the poor and helpless citizens can tear down the organized disorder we have today. The role of the courts. The courts in a democracy are supposed to ensure and maintain the rule of law. The rule of law is today universally recognized and reflected in, among other elements, the supremacy of the law, the respect for fundamental human rights, equality of all persons before the law, observance of due process, and the separation of powers and the checks and balances therein. Where they function optimally in administering the rule of law and dispensing justice promptly and impartially, courts are recognized as the bulwark of democracy and the last hope of the common man. The confidence the people repose on the judges is what constitutes the foundation of the court system. This is very important. It is a tragic situation when judges are suspected of being corrupt or partial. The seed of disorder is sown when judges yield moral authority to political influence, allowing themselves to be swayed from the path of truth and justice. Justice Oputa also says in the same paper I quoted that in the corridors of power, there should be no sirens of wealth. In the corridors of power, there should be no power and influence. Sorry, in the corridors of justice, there should be no power and influence, for the law is no respecter of persons, wealth, position, or influence. Elsewhere, he says, and I quote, money, they say, is the root of all evils. The bench is definitely not the place to make money. A corrupt judge is thus a great vermin, the greatest curse ever to afflict any nation. He says, the passing away of a great advocate like Olisa Bakoba does not pose such public danger as the appearance of a corrupt and or weak judge on the bench. For in the latter instance, the public interest is bound to suffer, and justice is thus deprecated and mocked and debased. It is far better to have an intellectually average but honest judge than a legal genius who is a rogue. Conclusion. The legal profession has faced several challenges in these climes. The legal profession, navigating through the waters of colonial administration, then across the treacherous terrain of military dictatorship, and now over the bumpy alleys of an infantile democracy. We have a long way to go. Nigeria, as even we heard from the keynote address of the Vice President, is very far away from attaining the kind of environment that we desire if we are only being compared with Libya and Somalia and Congo and Southern Sudan. We have a long way to go in reaching an environment that will facilitate any quality of national development. Life here, to be honest, is not far from the Hobbesian state, short, nasty, and brutish. The confidence of the Nigerian people in the legal system and the judicial process has continued to wane. No wonder people now and again resort to self-help, taking the law into their hands and by way of mob justice or extrajudicial executions. Lawyers and judges are perceived as belonging to the dominant group who do not really care about the plight of the poor. This unfortunate impression must change as a matter of urgency. Members of this exalted body, for whom the legal profession is not just another gateway to wealth and prestige, but who have a genuine commitment to the common good, have a lot of work to do. Members of the Bar Association of Nigeria, for whom the law profession is the expression of an all-consuming passion for justice that makes for peace, must today take responsibility for the future of our country, stretch out hands of fellowship to network with other professionals in our society with whom they share a common belief in the cause and effect relationship between justice and wholesome development. Finally, lawyers and judges in our society can, and I dare say must, summon the political will to pursue with unrelenting tenacity and dogged determination the urgent task of consolidating the gains of our fragile democracy through a series of legal advocacy mechanisms as well as deliberate regime of judicial activism. I thank you for listening.
If I had the power to confer a law degree on Father George Ehusani, I would gladly do it. But I think it's food for thought. I haven't felt, that our president, I'm sure, would lead us in some further reflections, because you've made me feel guilty. We've got to come back to that path in which the lawyer's calling is not just about making money. We have a very strong responsibility and duty to society. I think that was the point you were making. And we take it to heart. And thank you so very much for what you said.